Everyone mocked the mountain man for taking an ugly wife, until they saw her on the wedding night. The village sat quietly among the mountains, surrounded by tall, rugged peaks and forests so dense that sunlight barely touched the ground in some areas. It was the kind of place where life moved slowly, and everyone knew each other. The villagers spent their days farming, tending to animals, and walking along narrow paths that wound through the hills. Among them lived a man named Jahan. He was a mountain man, known far and wide for his strength, courage, and ability to survive in the harshest conditions. He had a rough exterior, with calloused hands, sun-baked skin, and eyes that seemed to reflect the wild mountains he called home. Despite his rugged appearance, he carried himself with quiet dignity. Jahan preferred the company of the mountains to the village people. He would spend days alone, hunting for food, climbing cliffs, or exploring hidden paths that no one else dared to walk. Villagers often saw him from a distance, moving like a shadow among the trees or standing on a cliff, staring at the valley below. Some admired him, while others thought he was strange, even frightening. He rarely spoke to anyone unless necessary, and when he did, his words were few but meaningful. When news spread that Jahan had chosen a wife, the village reacted with a mix of shock and amusement. Everyone wanted to know who could have caught the attention of the mountain man. People whispered in corners, laughed behind hands, and made bold guesses. Then they saw her, Amina. She was not what the villagers expected. Her face was plain, her features simple, and her clothes modest. She did not wear jewelry, nor did she show off in any way. Her hair was tied neatly, her hands were rough from helping her family, and her posture was humble. Instantly, the village erupted with mockery. "How could Jahan choose her?" they whispered. "Look at her. She is so ordinary. Surely he could have chosen someone beautiful." Laughter echoed through the streets as people pointed and whispered, making cruel jokes. Even children repeated what the adults said, unsure why it was funny, but eager to join in. Some villagers went as far as placing bets on how long the marriage would last, convinced that a man like Jahan deserved someone more attractive. Amina was aware of the whispers, the stares, and the jokes. She had lived in the village all her life and knew the cruelty of judgment. Many people had ignored her, dismissed her, or laughed at her appearance. Yet, unlike others who might have felt ashamed, she did not show anger or sadness. She moved through the village calmly, answering questions politely and helping her family with daily chores. There was a quiet strength in her, a kind of inner confidence that people often overlooked because they focused only on appearances. Her life had not been easy. Amina came from a humble background. Her family was not wealthy, and they worked hard to make ends meet. She had learned responsibility from a young age, helping her parents in the fields, taking care of her younger siblings, and running errands across the village. Through it all, she had developed patience, resilience, and a deep sense of empathy. These qualities were invisible to the villagers at first glance, but they shone through for Jahan. Jahan had noticed Amina long before the village did. He had seen her kindness to elders, her patience with children, and her quiet determination to help those around her. He admired the way she moved through life without complaining, facing difficulties with courage and grace. To him, she was beautiful, not because of her looks, but because of her spirit. He knew that her presence brought peace and warmth, the kind of beauty that could not be measured by outward appearance alone. Despite the ridicule, Jahan was steadfast. He did not care about the mockery or the doubts of the villagers. He believed that true beauty was not skin deep. In the mountains, he had seen how appearances could be deceiving. A rock that looked plain on the outside could hide veins of gold. A seemingly weak tree could withstand storms that toppled others. Similarly, he saw Amina's inner strength, which no one else seemed to notice. The village continued to speculate. Some said Jahan must have made a mistake. Others suggested that he might be hiding some hidden reason for marrying her. People said she must have tricked him somehow, or perhaps he had no other choice. Every day, their laughter and whispers grew louder, making it difficult for Amina's family to go about their daily work without feeling the sting of judgment. Even Jahan's relatives questioned his choice. They tried to reason with him, saying he deserved someone young, beautiful, and refined. They mentioned the women in neighboring villages dressed in fine clothes and adorned with jewelry, and wondered why he ignored them. Jahan listened quietly but did not respond to their criticism. He had made his decision and would not be swayed by gossip or shallow opinions. Amina, too, remained composed. She did not respond to the insults or try to change herself to fit the villagers' idea of beauty. Instead, she focused on her work and on preparing for the upcoming wedding. She helped her family gather firewood, cook meals, and repair their modest home. Each action, small as it seemed, demonstrated her care, intelligence, and quiet determination. People who took the time to notice could see her value, even if most were too busy laughing to appreciate it. In the days leading up to the wedding, the tension in the village grew. Everyone wanted to witness the marriage, to see if it would succeed or fail. They gathered near Amina's home, pretending to be casual but really eager to watch her every move. Children followed her around, imitating the adults' laughter, while neighbors whispered predictions about the couple's future. The atmosphere was filled with a mixture of curiosity, judgment, and anticipation. Jahan, meanwhile, remained calm and focused. He visited Amina's home each day, helping with preparations in ways that showed his respect and care. He never flaunted his strength or wealth, nor did he try to impress anyone. His attention was entirely on Amina. He spoke to her gently, laughed at her quiet jokes, and supported her in every task. People began to notice this bond forming between them, though they still could not understand it. One afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Jahan and Amina walked together to gather water from a nearby stream. Villagers watched from afar, shaking their heads. "He could have chosen any girl in the valley," one said. "Why her?" Another added, "She will never match his strength or courage." Yet Jahan and Amina moved together naturally, their steps in rhythm, their conversation light and easy. They laughed softly, shared stories, and carried buckets without complaint. To them, the world outside mattered little. Amina's calm and gentle demeanor began to leave a subtle impression on some villagers. A few noticed her patience with children, her kindness to the elderly, and her skill in managing tasks that others found difficult. Even those who had mocked her could not ignore the fact that she worked tirelessly, never seeking praise or attention. There was something quietly remarkable about her, something that made her stand out in ways that were not visible at first glance. Jahan admired her more with each passing day. To him, her simplicity was not a flaw, but a reflection of her character. He saw in her the qualities that he valued most: resilience, intelligence, patience, and compassion. In the mountains, he had learned that the most important traits were not seen in mirrors or measured by appearances, but in actions, choices, and the way a person treated others. Amina possessed all of these in abundance. As the wedding day approached, the village's curiosity reached its peak. People came from neighboring settlements to witness the event, eager to see whether Jahan's choice would be vindicated or prove foolish. They stared at Amina, whispered about her appearance, and laughed openly. Some even made crude jokes about the mountain man's judgment. Yet, Amina did not waver. She prepared calmly, ensuring that every detail was taken care of, from the small decorations to the food for the guests. Jahan's family noticed the harmony between the couple. They saw how he treated her with respect, how she responded with kindness, and how easily they worked together. While outsiders mocked, those closest to the couple began to sense something deeper. They saw that this marriage was not about appearances, but about connection, trust, and shared values. It was about finding someone whose soul matched one's own. On the eve of the wedding, the village settled into an uneasy silence. Some were still skeptical, convinced that ridicule would soon be justified. Others were quietly curious, wondering if perhaps they had underestimated Amina. In the quiet moments before nightfall, Jahan stood outside his small home, looking toward the mountains. He thought of the life ahead with Amina, the challenges, the joys, and the simple moments of shared happiness. He felt confident, knowing he had chosen wisely. Amina, too, felt a calm anticipation. She had faced judgment all her life, but she did not fear it now. She knew that Jahan saw her true worth, and that was all that mattered. She reflected on the strength it took to be patient in the face of mockery, to rise above the laughter, and to remain true to oneself. It was a quiet victory, one that she carried with dignity and pride. By the end of the day, the villagers had settled in for the night, their whispers echoing faintly through the mountain air. Few could imagine what the future held, but one thing was clear. This wedding was unlike any they had seen. Jahan had chosen a bride for reasons they could not understand, and Amina had accepted a life that would challenge her in ways the mountains themselves never had. In the quiet of the night, the first chapter of their story came to a close, leaving the village to wonder, question, and perhaps unknowingly, prepare to witness something extraordinary. The morning of the wedding arrived with a pale light filtering through the clouds over the mountains. Birds sang softly, and the village stirred slowly to life. For weeks, the villagers had been watching, whispering, and laughing about the mountain man's choice. Now, the day had come, and curiosity hung heavy in the air. People moved around their homes, pretending to be busy, but their eyes were constantly on Jahan's house and the small home where Amina lived. Everyone wanted to see the wedding, eager to watch what they were sure would be a strange match. Amina woke early. She had prepared for this day quietly, with a calmness that contrasted sharply with the villagers' excitement and gossip. She dressed in her simple clothes, the kind that her grandmother had sewn for her, with soft embroidery along the edges. Her hair was braided neatly, and she had washed her face carefully, though she did not wear any makeup. She did not need it. Her eyes carried a quiet glow, one that reflected patience, hope, and an inner strength that many had overlooked. She looked at herself in the small mirror, taking a deep breath. Today would be the start of a new life, and she faced it without fear. Meanwhile, Jahan prepared in his own way. He did not fuss over clothing or decorations. He wore the sturdy clothes of a mountain man. Clothes made for work and survival, not for impressing anyone. Yet, there was a dignity in the way he adjusted his garments, the way he straightened his back, and the calm in his eyes. He moved silently through his home, checking the few preparations that had been made. He was ready for this day not because of appearances, but because he had chosen wisely, and he knew the life ahead would require trust, respect, and shared strength. Villagers began to gather, pretending casually to walk along paths or tend to chores, but in reality everyone had a stake in seeing the wedding. Children ran ahead, laughing and pointing, repeating the jokes and whispers they had overheard. Adults followed with smirks and shaking heads, their minds full of predictions. "He has lost his mind," some whispered. "How could he choose her? Look at her! She is so ordinary." The words flowed easily, like water over stones, but neither Jahan nor Amina paid them any mind. Amina's family worked diligently to prepare. Her parents cooked simple but nourishing food, while her siblings arranged the small house to welcome guests. Despite the ridicule they had endured, they worked with pride. They knew Amina's worth, and they trusted that Jahan saw what they had always known. She was extraordinary in ways that went far beyond outward appearance. Her gentle nature, her quick mind, and her courage were qualities that could not be measured by beauty contests or village gossip. As the day progressed, villagers grew restless. They whispered about Amina's plain dress, about her quiet demeanor, and about how strange it was that Jahan, the mountain man, would choose her. They compared her to other young women in the valley, women who wore bright colors, jewelry, and intricate hairstyles. They wondered why Jahan had not chosen one of them. Yet every glance at him revealed that he was content, calm, and focused only on Amina. His attention never wavered, his respect never faltered, and that confused the villagers more than anything. Amina, too, moved through the day with calm determination. She checked every detail, no matter how small, to ensure the wedding would go smoothly. She arranged food, cleaned the small space where guests would gather, and even helped children who had wandered too close to the work area. Her patience and quiet leadership began to draw the attention of a few villagers who had been too quick to judge. They noticed the way she smiled at elders, the way she spoke kindly to the children, and the way she managed tasks efficiently. Slowly, some began to see that there was more to her than her appearance. Jahan arrived at Amina's home later in the morning. carrying a few gifts for the family and a basket of flowers he had picked from the mountains. He did not make a show of it, but the care in his actions was clear. He greeted the family warmly and spoke to Amina with gentle words, asking if she needed help with anything. His presence brought a calmness to the house, and even the skeptical villagers outside could see the respect and affection in his eyes. Together, Jahan and Amina began the preparations for the ceremony. They worked side by side, carrying water, arranging flowers, and making sure everything was ready. Their cooperation was effortless, their gestures natural. They did not need to speak much, for their understanding of each other was evident in every small action. People watching from outside could not deny the ease and harmony between them, though many still dismissed it, convinced that the day would reveal some flaw. As the afternoon approached, the village gathered more formally near the small house. People came from nearby valleys, bringing curious friends and relatives. Some dressed carefully, eager to present themselves as witnesses to this unusual union. They whispered about what the night would bring, about whether Amina could live up to Jahan's strength, and whether the marriage could survive the scrutiny of the village. Their curiosity mixed with doubt, creating an almost electric tension in the air. She noticed the whispers but did not let them disturb her. She focused on welcoming guests politely, arranging seating, and helping with last-minute preparations. She spoke softly, her voice steady and kind. Some villagers began to sense that there was more to this young woman than they had imagined. Her composure, her patience, and her quiet confidence were qualities that could not be faked or learned overnight. She possessed a natural grace that made her presence soothing and even commanding, in a gentle way. Jahan, meanwhile, moved through the crowd with quiet authority. He greeted a few neighbors politely, but his attention was always on Amina. He noticed her small gestures, how she adjusted a blanket for an elder, how she smiled at a child, how she checked the food trays carefully. Each action seemed simple, but he saw the thought, care, and effort behind it. To him, these were the signs of someone extraordinary. He was proud, though he did not need anyone else to see it. As the sun began to dip toward the mountains, the ceremony was ready to begin. The villagers, who had spent all day speculating, whispered excitedly. Some doubted the couple would last even a week. Others were intrigued, though they would not admit it openly. Still, there was a quiet sense that something unique was about to unfold. A few more perceptive villagers noticed the way Jahan and Amina moved together, how their actions complemented one another, and how naturally they fit as partners. Even they could not fully explain it, but they sensed a deeper connection that went beyond what the eyes could see. The ceremony itself was simple. Jahan and Amina stood together facing the small group of guests with calm dignity. There was no need for grand speeches or elaborate rituals. Their bond, visible in every glance and gesture, spoke louder than words. The villagers watched, some in silence, some with skepticism, but none could deny the respect and care evident between the two. Each step, each movement, reinforced the truth that their union was not about appearances, but about shared values, trust, and understanding. Throughout the day, small incidents began to change some minds. When a child stumbled, Amina was the first to help, offering gentle words and steady hands. When an elder asked for assistance, she moved quickly to help, showing attentiveness and care. Even the skeptical villagers began to notice that her actions were consistent, thoughtful, and genuine. They could not argue with the truth of what they saw, though many still tried to rationalize it away. As evening approached, a sense of anticipation filled the air. The villagers whispered about what the night would bring, but for John and Amina, it was simply the next step in a life they had already chosen. They moved quietly, together, preparing for the privacy and intimacy of the night ahead. There was no grand drama, no need to prove themselves to the world. They trusted each other, and that trust created a calmness that stood in sharp contrast to the village's restless curiosity. Even as the villagers speculated, a few could not ignore the subtle signs of connection. The way Jahan looked at Amina, the way she responded with ease and comfort, and the natural rhythm of their actions suggested a partnership built on more than chance or convenience. Slowly, some began to understand that this marriage was different, not ordinary, not superficial, and not dependent on appearances. It was about understanding, respect, and the kind of bond that only grows stronger with patience and care. By the time the sun sat behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the village, the wedding day had reached its most important moment. Guests moved quietly to witness the beginning of a new life for Jahan and Amina. The laughter and whispers had quieted, replaced by a sense of expectancy. Even the most skeptical villagers felt a shift, though they did not fully comprehend it. Something in the air suggested that this union was more than they had imagined, and that the mountain man and his bride were beginning a journey that would challenge, inspire, and surprise everyone around them. Jahan and Amina stepped forward together, side by side, calm and confident. Their eyes met, sharing unspoken understanding. They had faced the village's mockery, the whispers, and the doubts. Now, as the evening closed in, they prepared to face the night ahead, the night that would mark the first true test of their partnership, the beginning of a life together that no one could fully predict. Yet, both of them were ready. They knew that the journey ahead would be guided not by appearances or gossip, but by the deep connection they shared, a connection that would reveal the true strength and beauty of both of them, far beyond what anyone in the village had ever imagined. The wedding ceremony had ended, leaving the village with a mixture of curiosity, astonishment, and a lingering sense of disbelief. Many of the villagers still could not understand how Jahan, the strong, rugged mountain man, had chosen Amina, the quiet, plain-looking girl. They whispered among themselves as they returned to their homes, speculating about what the night would reveal. Some were certain that the marriage would fail, convinced that appearances and societal expectations could not be ignored. Others, though hesitant to admit it, began to wonder if they had misjudged Amina. There was a quiet tension in the air, as if the mountains themselves were holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Jahan and Amina returned to the small home where they would spend their first night as husband and wife. The house was modest, with wooden walls and a simple hearth, but it carried a sense of warmth and comfort that made it perfect for their start together. Amina moved gracefully around the small room, placing a few personal items on a table and adjusting the bedding. She did not need lavish decorations or bright fabrics. The simplicity of the space reflected her calm nature and her understanding of what truly mattered. Jahan watched her quietly, taking in every small gesture. He noticed how her hands moved with care, how her eyes scanned the room thoughtfully, and how her posture carried a natural dignity. He felt a quiet pride, knowing that he had chosen well. To him, this was a woman of substance, someone whose value was measured not by appearances but by actions, heart, and spirit. He admired her patience and calmness, qualities that would be essential in the life they were about to begin together. The villagers, however, could not see this. Their minds were still clouded with judgment and superficial ideas of beauty. They whispered behind closed doors and peered from windows, imagining how the night might unfold. Some speculated that Amina would prove unable to keep up with Jahan, while others believed that the man who had faced the harshness of the mountains would soon regret his choice. No one could predict what they would discover, and that anticipation made their gossip even more fervent. As evening fell, the room grew quiet. The sun had dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows and bathing the small house in a soft golden light. The gentle glow gave everything a warm, almost magical atmosphere. It was in this light that Amina's true presence began to reveal itself. She moved with ease and confidence, her calm demeanor shining in ways that the villagers had never imagined. There was a subtle elegance in the way she carried herself, an inner beauty that was impossible to ignore. Jahan noticed it immediately. He had known all along that Amina was special, but even he was quietly amazed by the way she seemed to transform in the soft evening light. Her kindness, intelligence, and inner strength became visible in her gestures, her words, and the way she interacted with him. It was as if the mountains themselves had blessed her with a quiet radiance, a natural charm that could not be faked or manufactured. For the first time, the villagers who dared to peek through windows and doorways began to see the truth. Amina was not just plain or ordinary. She was extraordinary in ways they had failed to notice. Her calm confidence, her gentle strength, and her thoughtful actions combined to create a presence that was both powerful and comforting. It was a beauty that went far beyond skin deep, a beauty that could only be understood by observing her character, not by judging her face or dress. Jahan approached her with a soft smile, his eyes filled with admiration. He spoke gently, asking if she was comfortable, if she needed anything. Amina responded with equal warmth, her voice steady and calm, carrying a kindness that seemed to fill the room. Together they moved through the evening with a natural harmony, their gestures and words reflecting mutual respect and understanding. The villagers who watched from afar could hardly believe their eyes. The mountain man and his bride seemed perfectly matched, their connection evident in every glance, every movement, and every quiet word shared between them. Amina's true beauty was not about her face, her clothes, or her appearance. It was in her actions, in the way she carried herself, and in the way she made Jahan feel seen, respected, and understood. She had an innate ability to calm him, to bring warmth and comfort to a man who had spent most of his life in the solitude of the mountains. Her intelligence and thoughtfulness were apparent in every small decision she made, from arranging the room to attending to Jahan's needs. It was clear to anyone who observed closely that she possessed qualities far more valuable than any superficial form of beauty. As the evening continued, Jahan and Amina shared stories and laughter, recalling moments from the wedding day and reflecting on their lives. They spoke openly, without pretense, and listened to each other with genuine interest. Their conversation revealed a deep understanding and compatibility, a bond that went beyond physical attraction. They discussed their hopes, their dreams, and the life they wanted to build together. In that small room, surrounded by the quiet of the mountains, they were completely at ease with one another. Outside, the villagers continued to watch, though their whispers had grown quieter. They were no longer mocking, but instead confused, intrigued, and even a little awed. They began to realize that they had underestimated both Jahan and Amina. The couple's bond, their respect for each other, and the calm strength of Amina's presence challenged everything the villagers thought they knew about beauty, love, and worth. Some began to question their own judgments, wondering if they had been too quick to mock and too slow to see the truth. Jahan's pride in Amina grew with each passing moment. He admired not just her patience and kindness, but also her courage. She had faced years of judgment, ridicule, and doubt, yet she had remained steadfast and true to herself. She had chosen to rise above the whispers and the mockery, to focus on what mattered most, her values, her character, and her love for him. Her resilience and integrity made her more beautiful than anyone in the village could have imagined. The night grew deeper, and the quiet of the mountains enveloped the small home. Jahan and Amina moved seamlessly through the evening, their actions guided by mutual respect and understanding. Every gesture, from sharing a simple meal to arranging their modest belongings, reflected a partnership built on trust, care, and shared strength. Even the skeptical villagers began to sense that something extraordinary was unfolding before their eyes. They could no longer dismiss the couple as a foolish pairing. They had to acknowledge the undeniable harmony and compatibility between them. Amina's charm was subtle but powerful. It was in the way she listened, the way she laughed softly, and the way she moved with grace and confidence. She did not need to prove herself. Her character spoke volumes. Jahan, who had spent most of his life in the rugged mountains, recognized her worth immediately. He saw in her a partner who could endure hardship, celebrate joy, and face the future with courage and wisdom. In her presence, he felt a sense of completeness that he had never experienced before. As the night progressed, the villagers' whispers turned to astonished murmurs. Some could not believe what they were seeing. The woman they had mocked for her appearance was radiant, not in a superficial sense, but in the way she carried herself, interacted with Jahan, and filled the room with calm, gentle energy. Their skepticism was challenged, and slowly they began to understand that true beauty is measured by actions, heart, and spirit, not by outward appearances. The mountain man and his bride continued their first night with quiet intimacy, sharing their hopes and dreams. They spoke of the mountains, the village, and the life they would build together. Every word, every gesture, revealed a deep connection that went far beyond physical attraction. It was a union of minds, hearts, and spirits, a bond that the villagers could not fully comprehend, but could not ignore. By the time the first light of dawn began to touch the mountains, Jahan and Amina had spent hours together, building a foundation of trust, understanding. The villagers who had watched from afar returned to their homes in silence, their minds full of reflection. They could no longer see Amina as plain or ordinary. They had witnessed her true beauty, the beauty of patience, kindness, intelligence, and courage. They had seen the mountain man's choice vindicated, and in that realization many felt a quiet shame for their earlier mockery. In the small, modest home, Jahan and Amina rested side by side, aware that their journey was just beginning. They had faced judgment, gossip, and doubt together, and their bond had only grown stronger. The night had revealed the truth, that love, respect, and understanding are far more important than appearances, and that true beauty shines brightest in the presence of character and heart. And so, as the village awoke to a new day, the first real test of the mountain man's marriage had passed. Amina's quiet strength, elegance, and inner beauty had surprised everyone who doubted her, leaving a lasting impression that would challenge the village's ideas about worth, love, and judgment for years to come. The story of Jahan and Amina was no longer just about appearances. It had become a story of respect, admiration, and the transformative power of seeing beyond the surface. The morning after the wedding brought a calm silence over the village. The sun rose slowly behind the mountains, casting golden light over the valley and illuminating the modest homes scattered across the hills. The villagers were awake early, some curious, some cautious, and some still whispering about the unusual marriage. Yet the previous night had already changed many minds. Those who had mocked Amina's appearance began to realize that they had been wrong. Beauty, they slowly understood, was more than skin deep. True beauty could be seen in patience, courage, kindness, and the quiet strength to face challenges with grace. Amina woke early, as she always had, and moved with her usual calmness. She quietly prepared breakfast for herself and Jahan, arranging the simple meal on a small wooden table. She worked efficiently, yet her movements carried a quiet elegance that drew attention even without her intending it. Jahan watched her with admiration, feeling a deep sense of pride and contentment. He did not need words to express how he felt. The ease of their connection spoke volumes. The harmony between them, evident even in small, everyday tasks, was the beginning of a life built on mutual respect and understanding. The villagers soon noticed the couple emerging from their home. Jahan carried a basket of supplies for the day, while Amina walked beside him with a quiet confidence that had not gone unnoticed. Those who had once laughed now stared in awe. Some whispered among themselves, trying to rationalize the change, but the truth was undeniable. Amina was remarkable. She moved with purpose, spoke with kindness, and carried herself with dignity. The villagers could see that Jahan's choice had not been foolish, but wise, and their perspectives slowly began to shift. A few bold villagers approached, hesitant at first, but eventually offering congratulations. Amina received their words with grace, smiling politely and thanking them without arrogance. Jahan, ever respectful, nodded and expressed appreciation for their acknowledgement. It was a small gesture, but it signaled the beginning of acceptance. The couple's calm confidence and kindness were slowly changing the hearts of those who had once doubted them. Over the next few weeks, life returned to its normal rhythm, but the village's view of Amina and Jahan had transformed. Villagers began to notice Amina's contributions in ways they had ignored before. She helped neighbors with chores, offered advice when needed, and assisted children with their lessons. Her intelligence, patience, and unwavering kindness became apparent to all. People who had mocked her in the past now sought her guidance, realizing that her worth extended far beyond appearances. Jahan and Amina continued to work together in harmony. Their partnership was evident in every task, from tending to animals and gathering firewood to cooking meals and caring for the home. They complemented each other naturally. Where Jahan's strength and experience provided security and protection, Amina's wisdom and calm demeanor brought balance and comfort. Their life together, though simple, was filled with shared purpose and joy. Every day reinforced the respect and trust that formed the foundation of their marriage. Even the children of the village, who had once teased Amina, began to admire her. They watched how she treated others with kindness, and how she approached every task with patience and care. Slowly, they imitated her behavior, learning valuable lessons about respect, humility, and courage. Amina became more than a bride. She became a role model, showing that true strength comes from character and the way one treats others. One day, a severe storm swept through the mountains. Heavy rain poured down, winds howled, and many villagers worried about their homes and livestock. Jahan and Amina worked together tirelessly, helping neighbors secure their houses and move animals to safety. Jahan used his physical strength to carry supplies and repair damaged structures, while Amina coordinated efforts, directed people, and offered comfort to those frightened by the storm. Their teamwork saved lives and property, and the villagers finally understood why Jahan had chosen her. She was not just a companion. She was a partner in every sense of the word, capable of facing challenges with courage, intelligence, and grace. After the storm passed, the village's admiration for the couple grew even stronger. Stories of their bravery and teamwork spread quickly, replacing the old gossip and ridicule. Villagers spoke of Amina not as the plain girl they had mocked, but as a remarkable woman whose presence had transformed the life of the mountain man and enriched the community. Jahan, too, was celebrated not just for his strength and skill in the mountains, but for his wisdom in choosing a partner whose inner qualities matched his own values and character. As seasons changed, so did the lives of Jahan and Amina. Spring brought new growth to the fields, and they worked together planting crops and caring for their animals. Summer brought long days of labor, but also moments of joy and laughter as they shared meals, told stories, and enjoyed the beauty of the mountains. Autumn painted the valley in golden hues, and they harvested their crops always side by side, each action reinforcing their deep bond. Winter arrived with snow-covered peaks, and the couple faced harsh weather together, relying on their partnership, trust, and shared resilience to endure. Throughout the year, villagers continued to watch the couple, often in awe. They noticed how Amina handled every situation with calm intelligence, and how Jahan respected and valued her opinions. The mockery of the past seemed like a distant memory. Those who had doubted them now sought their advice, guidance, and support, recognizing the wisdom and strength that Amina brought into their lives. The village had learned an important lesson, that judgment based on appearances is shallow, and true value lies in character, actions, and the ability to contribute positively to the lives of others. Over time, Jahan and Amina's relationship inspired others in the village. Young couples began to focus less on appearances and more on shared values and mutual respect. The story of the mountain man and his wife became an example of love, partnership, and understanding. Villagers spoke of them not as a curiosity, but as a symbol of what a strong, respectful, and caring relationship could be. Jahan and Amina continued to nurture their life together. They celebrated small victories and supported each other through challenges. Their love deepened, built on trust, admiration, and shared experiences. Amina's calm presence balanced Jahan's strength, and together they created a home filled with warmth, respect, and joy. Their partnership was a living testament to the idea that true beauty is revealed through actions, character, and the care we show to one another. Years passed and the village changed alongside the couple. New generations grew up hearing the story of the mountain man and his bride, learning to value kindness, patience, intelligence, and courage over superficial appearances. Jahan and Amina remained a constant example. Their life together proof that true beauty and strength are not measured by outward appearances but by the depth of character and the ability to love, support, and respect another person. Visitors from nearby villages often came to see the couple, curious about the story they had heard. They were greeted warmly, treated with kindness, and often left with lessons about humility, patience, and respect. Amina's quiet intelligence and grace impressed everyone, and Jahan's strength and wisdom complemented her perfectly. Together they became an inspiration not just in their own village, but in the wider region, showing that love based on true understanding and respect could overcome mockery, doubt, and superficial judgment. As they grew older, Jahan and Amina often reflected on their journey. They remembered the mockery and doubt of the past, the whispers and laughter of the villagers, and the long road that had brought them together. Yet, they did not dwell on negativity. Instead, they focused on the lessons learned, the strength gained through patience and resilience, and the joy of a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. Their love had grown stronger through every challenge, every season, and every shared moment. The villagers, now fully aware of Amina's true worth, continued to respect and admire the couple. They celebrated their successes, learned from their wisdom, and recognized that true beauty and value are found in character, courage, and kindness. The story of Jahan and Amina became a cornerstone of village life, reminding everyone that appearances are fleeting, but actions, heart, and spirit endure. In the quiet moments of evening, when the mountains cast long shadows over their home, Jahan and Amina would sit together, sharing stories, reflecting on their day, and enjoying the simple pleasures of life. Their partnership remained strong, a living example of love, respect, and mutual admiration. Each day reinforced their bond, each action demonstrated their care for one another, and each moment of laughter or support reminded them, and those around them, that true beauty shines from within. And so, the mountain man and his wife lived their lives together in harmony, admiration, and mutual respect. The villagers' mockery and doubt faded into memory, replaced by appreciation, respect, and even inspiration. The couple's story became a lesson for generations, that love, partnership, and true beauty are defined not by appearances, but by the heart, the character, and the care we show to those we cherish. Jahan's choice had been wise, and Amina's strength and kindness had proven transformative. Together they created a life that was rich in respect, understanding, and quiet joy. A life that the village would remember for many years to come. Their journey, which had begun with ridicule and doubt, ended with admiration, acceptance, and the enduring truth that the deepest beauty is found in actions, character, and the bonds we build with those we love.